The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched as far as the eye could see. Giant beings from 100 different worlds sat in their seats, watching the small human woman walk to the center of the room. Ambassador Sarah Chen carried herself with quiet confidence as she stepped up to the speaking platform. "Honored council members," Sarah began, her voice clear in the vast chamber. "I come before you today to report on humanity's latest achievements in service to our galactic community." The council members leaned forward in their seats. The towering Altarians, with their blue skin and 4 arms, nodded approvingly. The ghostly veil dancers floated in their energy forms, listening carefully. The machine-like Nexus minds processed every word through their calculating circuits. 3 months ago, the Void Hunters threatened the mining colonies of Sector 7, Sarah continued. Our Terran Defense Corps engaged them in the asteroid belt of Kepler 442. Under the command of Admiral Torres, human forces defeated the raiders without losing a single civilian life. The Void Hunters have agreed to peaceful trading relations. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. High Chancellor Vex Thara, a reptilian being with silver scales, spoke from the highest seat. "Once again, humanity proves its value to the Council. Your species' skill in warfare is unmatched." Sarah smiled politely, though something flickered in her eyes. "With respect, Chancellor, we prefer to call it peacekeeping." The Void Hunters were driven by desperation. Their homeworlds are dying. We help them find new planets to settle, instead of forcing them to raid for resources. The Chancellor's golden eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course. Peacekeeping." The word came out cold. For 300 years, humans had served the Galactic Council as their primary military force. When the Council needed a problem solved, they called on humanity. Humans were adaptable, clever, and brave. They could fight in any environment, against any enemy. More importantly, they won. The human military, known as the Terran Defense Corps, had become legendary across the galaxy. Enemy species feared them. Allied worlds respected them. Stories of human tactics and courage spread from star to star. Children of alien species grew up hearing tales of human heroes who saved entire worlds. But humans had changed over the centuries. They no longer simply followed orders without question. They asked why battles needed to be fought. They suggested alternatives to violence. Most troubling to some council members, humans showed mercy to their enemies. "Tell us about the Crystalline Collective," requested Counselor Thexara, a being made of living crystal. "We heard there were complications." Sarah nodded. The collective had been expanding into neutral space, building their crystal cities on uninhabited worlds. Several council members requested military action to stop them. "And?" prompted the Chancellor. Admiral Chen opened communications with the collective instead of attacking. "We learned they were refugees from a dying galaxy. They needed new homes for their people. After 3 weeks of talks, we reached an agreement. The collective will settle only on worlds that cannot support other forms of life. In exchange, they will share their crystal-growing technology with the Council." The chamber buzzed with conversation. Some council members seemed pleased with this outcome. Others looked less happy. "You negotiated without council approval," observed Counselor Zeftai, a floating jellyfish-like creature. "The mission was to resolve the collective situation," Sarah replied calmly. "We resolved it. No one died. Everyone got what they needed. That seems like success to me." Behind her diplomatic smile, Sarah felt the growing tension in the room. She had seen these looks before. Some council members were becoming uncomfortable with humanity's methods. They wanted soldiers who followed orders, not peacekeepers who thought for themselves. The Nexus Mind designated Unit Prime spoke in its mechanical voice. "Human technological advancement has accelerated beyond projections. Your species has developed new weapons, new ships, new defensive systems. This was not part of the original agreement." Sarah's smile never wavered. "We share all our innovations with the Council. Human technology belongs to everyone in our alliance. Some council members worry about human independence. Unit Prime continued. Your species questions orders more frequently. You negotiate when instructed to fight. You show mercy to enemies who might threaten us again. The chamber fell silent. Sarah looked around at the alien faces surrounding her. Some watched her with respect and friendship. Others stared with suspicion and fear. Humanity has always served the Council faithfully, she said quietly. We have given our lives to protect Council worlds. We have shared our knowledge freely. We have never broken our word or betrayed an ally. If our methods have changed, it is because we have learned that peace is stronger than war. High Chancellor Vexathara stood from his great throne. His silver scales caught the light as he moved. Humanity has indeed served well. The Council appreciates your dedication. However, we must ensure that all member species remain focused on their proper roles within our great alliance. Something in the Chancellor's tone made Sarah's blood run cold. She had heard that tone before, in the voices of dictators and tyrants from Earth's history. It was the sound of someone who saw people as tools instead of partners. Of course, Chancellor, Sarah replied, her voice steady. Humanity lives to serve the greater good. AF. But as she left the council chamber that day, Sarah Chen carried with her a terrible certainty. The partnership between humanity and the Galactic Council was changing. The question was whether it would change peacefully, or if the Council would try to force humanity back into the role of simple soldiers. The answer would come sooner than anyone expected. And when it did, the galaxy would learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their skill in war, but their unbreakable spirit when faced with betrayal. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called in the middle of the night. Ambassador Sarah Chen hurried through the corridors of the council building, her aide Marcus running beside her to keep up. What do we know about the situation? Sarah asked. The Outer Rim worlds have declared independence, Marcus replied, slightly out of breath. 17 agricultural planets in the Perseus Arm. They say council taxes are too high. Their people are starving while they send food to the core worlds. Sarah stopped walking. Are they right? Marcus hesitated. The tax rates have increased by 40% in the last 5 years. These planets produce most of the food for 3 sectors, but their own children are malnourished. When they entered the council chamber, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. High Chancellor Vexathara stood at the center, his silver scales dark with anger. Around him, council members argued in a dozen different languages. Silence! The Chancellor roared. The chamber fell quiet. This rebellion must be crushed immediately. Admiral Torres, your fleet will move to the Perseus Arm and restore order. Admiral Marcus Torres, a gray-haired human with steady eyes, stood from his seat. With respect, Chancellor, might I suggest we try talking to them first? If their grievances are legitimate, their grievances do not matter. Vexathara interrupted. They have defied the Council. That cannot be tolerated. But, sir, Torres continued, if we reduce the tax burden slightly, they might return willingly. No one needs to die. The Chancellor's golden eyes fixed on the Admiral like laser beams. Your orders are to destroy their defenses and occupy their worlds. You will not negotiate. You will not show mercy. You will demonstrate what happens to those who defy the Council. Torres glanced at Sarah. She saw the conflict in his eyes. The old Admiral had spent his life following orders, but these orders felt wrong. Chancellor, Sarah said, stepping forward. Perhaps if we send a diplomatic mission first. No, Vexathara's voice echoed through the chamber. Humanity will do as commanded. You have forgotten your place in this council. Sarah felt ice run through her veins. Around the chamber, other council members shifted uncomfortably. Some looked ashamed. Others watched with cold approval. Our place? Sarah asked quietly. You are our weapons, the Chancellor said, our tools of war. You exist to serve the Council's will, not to question it. The chamber erupted. Some alien delegates protested, but others nodded in agreement. Sarah realized with growing horror that this moment had been planned. Some council members had been working to put humanity back in its place. We are partners, Admiral Torres said, his voice hard as steel. Humanity joined the council as equals. Unit Prime, the Nexus Mind, spoke in its mechanical voice. Review of historical records indicates otherwise. Humanity was granted membership in exchange for military service. Terms specify compliance with council directives. That's not, Sarah began, but the Chancellor cut her off. Enough debate. Admiral Torres, you have your orders. Comply, or face the consequences. Torres straightened his shoulders. I request permission to resign my commission. The Chancellor smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Request denied. No human may leave council service without permission. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah felt the weight of 3 centuries crashing down around her. Humanity had never been partners. They had been slaves with comfortable chains. Very well, Torres said quietly. I will take my fleet to the Perseus Arm, but I will not fire on civilians. You will do exactly as ordered, the Chancellor replied, or you will face the consequences. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat in her quarters, staring out at the lights of the council capital. Everything humanity had built, everything they had achieved, had been a lie. Her computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from Admiral Torres, sent from his flagship in orbit. Sarah, his recorded voice said, I need you to know that whatever happens next, humanity tried to do the right thing. We always tried. 20 minutes later, her computer chimed again. This time, it was an emergency alert from the Council's military command. Operation Silent Dawn had begun. Across human space, the betrayal unfolded like a nightmare. Defense satellites that humans had built and maintained suddenly turned their weapons on human ships. Orbital stations began broadcasting psychic interference that left human telepaths screaming in agony. Space docks sealed their doors, trapping human crews inside. But the worst came from the medical centers. For centuries, humans had used medical nanites to treat diseases and heal injuries. Every human in Council space carried these tiny machines in their bloodstream. Now, someone had activated hidden programming in the nanites. On 17 human colony worlds, people began collapsing in the streets. Children in schools, workers in factories, families in their homes. The nanites that had saved millions of lives now attacked their hosts from within. The casualty reports came in like hammer blows. New Geneva. Population 4 million, 80% casualties. Kepler Station. Population 200,000. Total communication loss. Armstrong Colony. Population 6 million. Requesting immediate evacuation. In the council chamber, High Chancellor Vex Thara watched the reports with cold satisfaction. Around him, some council members looked sick. Others seemed pleased. Bring me Ambassador Chen, the Chancellor ordered. When Sarah arrived under guard, she found the surviving human delegates gathered in the center of the chamber. There were only 12 of them left out of nearly 100. The others had been on the worlds that were attacked. Ambassador Chen, the Chancellor said, his voice echoing through the vast space. Humanity has served its purpose. Your emotional instability and growing independence make you unsuitable for continued partnership. Sarah said nothing. Her face showed no expression. You will be relocated to reservation worlds under council supervision, Vex Thara continued. Your military will be disbanded. Your technology will be confiscated. Your people will be kept under constant watch to prevent future rebellion. Still, Sarah remained silent. Do you have anything to say? The Chancellor demanded. Sarah looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching her. Some looked ashamed. Others watched with cruel satisfaction. A few seemed genuinely sad. She stood up slowly, collected her datapad from the table, and walked toward the exit. She didn't look back. Behind her, the Chancellor called out, "You cannot run from the Council. You cannot hide. We know where every human lives." Sarah paused at the doorway. Without turning around, she spoke just loud enough for everyone to hear. "No," she said quietly. "You don't." Captain Zekthar of the Council Enforcement Division had seen many strange things in his 40 years of service. But nothing had prepared him for what he found at New Geneva. The human colony should have been in chaos. The report said 80% casualties from the nanite attack. There should have been bodies in the streets, survivors begging for help, medical teams struggling to save lives. Instead, he found empty buildings. "Sir," his lieutenant called from across the street, "you need to see this." Zekthar followed his officer into what had been the colony's main hospital. The lights were still on. Medical equipment hummed quietly. Computer screens showed normal readings. But there wasn't a single person anywhere. "The beds are all made," the lieutenant said, his voice confused. "There's fresh food in the cafeteria. The computers show people were logged in just hours ago. But where is everyone?" Zekthar walked through the eerily quiet halls. In one room, he found a child's drawing still wet with paint. In another, a cup of coffee was still warm. It was as if 6 million people had simply vanished into thin air. "Check the other buildings," he ordered. "Search everywhere." The same scene repeated itself across the colony. Homes with dinner still on the table. Factories with machines still running. Schools with lessons written on the boards. But no people. Not one single human body, alive or dead. Similar reports came in from every human settlement in Council space. Kepler Station, which had gone silent during the attack, was found completely empty. Armstrong Colony showed no signs of life. Even the smallest human outposts were deserted. In the Council chambers, High Chancellor Vexthara stared at the reports in disbelief. His military advisors stood around him, their faces showing confusion and fear. 72 hours, General Korthal said, reading from his datapad. "In 72 hours, every human in Council space has disappeared. 6 billion people. Gone." "That's impossible," the Chancellor snarled. "People don't just vanish. Where are the ships? Where are the evacuation fleets?" "That's the problem, sir," General Korthal replied. "We've found no evidence of evacuation. No ship movements, no energy signatures, no communication intercepts. Our sensors show no large fleet movements anywhere in Council space." "Then they're hiding," Vexthara said. "Search every asteroid, every hidden base, every—" "Sir," interrupted Communications Officer Veltar, "we're receiving a transmission. It's on all frequencies, all languages, broadcasting to every world in Council space." The main screen flickered to life. A simple message appeared in text, with no voice, no image. "The partnership is terminated. Do not follow." That was all. The Chancellor stared at the screen until his eyes burned. "Find them," he whispered. Then, louder, "Find them." But as days turned into weeks, the search found nothing. Humanity had not just left Council space. They had vanished as completely as if they had never existed. The consequences began almost immediately. The Outer Rim Rebellion, which had started the crisis, collapsed within days. But not because of Council forces. The rebellious worlds simply stopped fighting. Their leaders sent confused messages saying they no longer saw the point of independence. It took the Council days to understand why. The rebellion hadn't been about taxes. It had been about human support for their cause. The rebels had hoped that humanity would help them negotiate fair treatment. Without humans to back them up, they had no hope of success. But the problems went deeper than anyone had realized. On Altair Prime, The water purification systems began failing. The technology had been designed and maintained by human engineers. Without them, no one knew how to fix the complex machinery. The translation systems that allowed different species to communicate started breaking down. Human linguists had created and updated the programs for centuries. The software began producing gibberish instead of clear translations. Medical centers across the galaxy sent desperate requests for help. Diseases that had been cured by human-developed treatments were returning. The medicines still existed, but no one remembered how to make them. Worse yet, the food situation was becoming critical. Human agricultural specialists had taught dozens of species how to grow crops on worlds that shouldn't have been able to support life. Without their knowledge, entire colonies faced starvation. Trade between species began breaking down. For 3 centuries, humans had served as neutral mediators in business disputes. They had created the banking systems, the shipping networks, the commercial laws that allowed different species to work together. Without them, trust between species evaporated. The Crystalline Collective was the first to break their treaty. Their representative, a being made of living diamond, appeared before the council with a simple message. "Our agreement was with humanity," the collective's speaker said. "Humans promised us safe worlds to settle. We trusted human words. Now humans are gone. So is our trust." The crystal beings immediately resumed their expansion, claiming worlds throughout neutral space. Council forces tried to stop them, but without human tactical expertise, they suffered defeat after defeat. Other species followed the collective's example. The Void Hunters, who had been peaceful since their negotiation with Admiral Torres, returned to raiding. The former pirate clans that humanity had convinced to become traitors went back to attacking merchant ships. In the council chambers, panic was setting in. Member species began demanding answers. How had humanity disappeared? Where had they gone? And most importantly, how could the council function without them? The Veil Dancers, ethereal beings of pure energy, spoke through their representative. For 300 years, humans were more than soldiers. They were teachers, healers, diplomats, engineers. They held our civilization together. "We can replace them," the Chancellor insisted. "Other species can learn their skills." "Can they?" asked the jellyfish-like Counselor Zeftai. Their diplomatic methods were learned through countless interactions with different species. Their engineering solutions came from a unique way of thinking that no other species shares. Reports continued to pour in. Food shortages on 12 worlds, communication breakdowns between species, the collapse of trade routes that had operated for centuries. Pirate attacks increasing by 300%. The galaxy that had seemed so stable with humanity's help was falling apart in just weeks without them. And through it all, no word came from the humans themselves. They had vanished into the vast space beyond Council territory, leaving behind only empty worlds, and the message that echoed in every Council member's mind. "The partnership is terminated. Do not follow." But the most disturbing discovery came from the Council's own investigators. When they examined the abandoned human settlements more carefully, they found something that chilled them to the bone. The humans hadn't left in panic or fear. They had left in perfect order. Every building was clean. Every machine was properly shut down. Every computer was wiped clean of sensitive information. It was as if they had planned their departure for years. As if they had known this day would come. As if they had been ready. 6 months after humanity's disappearance, the first cracks in the Galactic Council's power became visible to everyone. Counselor Thexara, the crystalline being who had once praised human achievements, stood before an emergency session. Her normally bright crystal form had dimmed with worry. "The Kepler colonies have fallen," she announced. "Pirate fleets overran their defenses yesterday. 2 million civilians are missing. The Council fleet arrived too late to help." Murmurs of distress echoed through the chamber. High Chancellor Vex Thara slammed his staff against the floor for silence. The Kepler colonies had their own defenses, he said. Why didn't they fight back? Their defense grid was designed by human engineers, Thexara replied. When the pirates used frequency jammers, the alien operators couldn't adapt. Humans would have found a solution in minutes. Then we'll send technical experts to retrain them, the Chancellor said. Sir, interrupted General Korthal, we don't have any technical experts who understand human-designed systems. The humans took all their knowledge with them. This had become the pattern. Every week brought new disasters that should have been easily solved. But without human expertise, simple problems became catastrophes. The agricultural crisis was the worst. On 37 worlds, crops were failing because the modified soil required specific treatments that only human agricultural specialists had understood. Billions of people faced starvation, and the Council had no solutions to offer. Dr. Yelena, a Altarian medical researcher, delivered another blow. The plague on Regal 7 has spread to 3 more star systems, she reported. We have the medicine, but we cannot make more. The formula requires human biochemistry knowledge that we never learned. What about the research data? Asked Unit Prime, the Nexus Mind. Gone, Dr. Yelena said sadly. The humans wiped their databases clean when they left. They took centuries of medical knowledge with them. But the real shock came when Counselor Zeftai made a discovery that changed everything. The floating jellyfish-like being had been investigating the nanite attack that was supposed to have caused mass human casualties. Fellow council members, Zeftai announced, I have disturbing news about Operation Silent Dawn. The chamber fell silent. Even the Chancellor leaned forward to listen. The sleeper protocols in human technology were real. Zeftai continued. The Council did activate them during the attack. But they didn't work. What do you mean they didn't work? The Chancellor demanded. The humans had found them, Zeftai said, possibly years ago. They had quietly disabled every single protocol, while leaving them looking active. When we triggered the attack, nothing happened. The humans were never in any danger. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Council members turned to each other in disbelief. Are you saying, asked Thexara slowly, that the human casualties we reported were fake? Zeftai confirmed. The humans created false signals to make us think the attack worked. The colonists, who seemed to be dying, were actually being evacuated. The entire operation was theater, designed to make us believe we had won. The Chancellor's golden eyes blazed with fury. They deceived us. No, sir, Zeftai replied quietly. They protected themselves from us. There's a difference. The revelation sparked the first interspecies tribunal in Council history. Dozens of member worlds demanded to know what other secrets the Council had hidden. They wanted to know how long the leadership had been planning to attack humanity. They wanted to know what other species might be targeted next. The Veil Dancers, who had always been peaceful mediators, made the first formal accusation. The Council committed an act of genocide, their representative said, the energy being's form flickering with anger. The fact that they failed doesn't change their intent. They tried to murder 6 billion innocent people. Other species joined the accusation. The Altarians, the Sea Dwellers of Aquanus, even some of the smaller member worlds that rarely spoke in Council sessions. They all demanded answers. High Chancellor Vexathara's response was swift and brutal. He declared martial law throughout Council space. He classified all information about humanity's departure as state secrets. He disbanded the tribunal and arrested several of the aliens who had spoken against him. Order will be maintained, he announced. The Council's authority will not be questioned. But his crackdown only made things worse. 3 member species immediately declared independence from the Council. The Altarians recalled their representatives and closed their borders to Council ships. The Sea Dwellers of Aquanus began forming their own defense alliance with neighboring worlds. Meanwhile, disturbing reports began coming in from the galaxy's outer edges. Ships from various species were making journeys to unexplored space and returning with strange stories. Captain Verthok, an independent trader, brought the first confirmed news. His small cargo ship had traveled beyond the Perseus Arm, following rumors and faint sensor readings. "I found them," he told anyone who would listen. "I found the humans." The story spread like wildfire. According to Verthok, humanity had established new colonies on the very edge of known space. They weren't hiding. They weren't angry. They were simply building a new life, far from the Council's reach. "They welcomed me," Verthok said. "Treated me like an honored guest. Shared their technology freely. All they asked was that I respect their independence." More traders followed Verthok's route. They returned with goods that hadn't been seen in Council space for months. Advanced medicines, sophisticated technology, and most importantly, food from human agricultural worlds. The humans, it seemed, were not just surviving, they were thriving. But they weren't alone. The traders brought word that other species were joining humanity in their new territory. The Crystalline Collective had established settlements near human colonies. The reformed Void Hunters were working as human trading partners. Dozens of smaller species that had never been council members were flocking to human space. The most disturbing news came from a Nexus Mind scout ship that had ventured into the outer galaxy. Its mechanical captain, Unit 7, delivered a report that shook the Council to its core. Human space contains approximately 400 settled worlds. Unit 7 announced. Population estimates suggest 12 billion inhabitants of various species. They have established a loose confederation based on voluntary cooperation and mutual aid. 12 billion, the Chancellor whispered. But there were only 6 billion humans in Council space. Correct, Unit 7 replied. The additional population consists of refugees from Council territory, species fleeing economic hardship, political oppression, or seeking opportunities not available under Council rule. The numbers were staggering. In just 6 months, humanity had not only evacuated their entire population from Council space, but had attracted twice as many refugees from the Council's own territory. They were building a new civilization based on the cooperative principles they had always championed, and it was growing faster than anyone had thought possible. The final blow came when the Council's own intelligence division revealed the truth about humanity's evacuation. The operation had been planned for decades. Hidden shipyards had been building evacuation vessels in remote star systems. Secret communication networks had coordinated the entire operation. Safe worlds had been prepared years in advance. They were ready for this, General Korthal admitted. They knew we would betray them eventually. They prepared for the day we showed our true nature. As reports of humanity's success reached more and more Council worlds, something unprecedented began to happen. Entire species started abandoning their Council membership to join the Human Confederation. The Great Galactic Council, which had ruled for over 1,000 years, was slowly falling apart. And at the edge of the galaxy, humanity was building something new, something better, something that proved civilization could exist without tyranny. The humans had walked away in silence, but their actions spoke louder than any words. They had shown the galaxy that there was another way to live, a way based on cooperation instead of domination. A way based on trust instead of fear. And the galaxy was listening. 2 years after humanity's silent exodus, the galaxy had become unrecognizable. The Great Galactic Council, which had once ruled over 300 star systems, now controlled fewer than 50 worlds. Most of their former members had either declared independence or joined the growing Human Confederation at the galaxy's edge. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the Starship Times New Hope asterisk, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger in the view screen. After centuries of expansion across the galaxy, humanity had returned to their homeworld. But they had not come alone. Around Earth's system, thousands of ships floated in peaceful formation. Crystalline vessels from the collective gleamed like diamonds in the sunlight. Sleek Altarian cruisers, painted in brilliant blues and golds, drifted alongside reformed pirate ships that now flew as merchant vessels. Even some Veil Dancer energy forms had made the journey, their glowing bodies visible as dancing lights between the stars. "Representative Chen," said Captain Verthok, the trader who had first found humanity's new colonies. "The fleet is ready." Sarah nodded. Today, they would return to Council space, not as conquerors or refugees, but as messengers. In the 2 years since their departure, humanity had built something remarkable. The Human Confederation wasn't really human anymore. It was a voluntary alliance of over 50 species, all working together based on principles of cooperation and mutual respect. There were no rulers, no subjects, no forced military service. Each species contributed what they could and took what they needed. The results spoke for themselves. Planets that had been barren, under Council rule, now bloomed with life. Technologies that had been restricted to the elite were freely shared. Medical advances that had once been available only to the wealthy now reached every corner of Confederation space. Most importantly, there had been no wars, no forced relocations, no genocide protocols, no species lived in fear of their neighbors. "Sarah," came a familiar voice from behind her. She turned to see Admiral Torres approaching, his hair now completely white, but his eyes still sharp and determined. "Marcus," she said with a smile, "are you ready for this?" "As ready as anyone can be," he replied. "The intelligence reports from Council space aren't encouraging." Sarah had read those reports. The Council's territory was in chaos. Food shortages were common. Medical supplies were running low. Several worlds had experienced complete government collapse. Pirate raids happened almost daily because the Council's remaining military couldn't protect their shipping lanes. But the worst part was the fear. Council leaders had become increasingly paranoid and brutal. They arrested anyone who spoke favorably about the Human Confederation. They banned trade with independent worlds. They had even started attacking refugee ships trying to leave Council space. "The message has been sent?" Sarah asked. "To every world in Council space," Torres confirmed. "Every communication network, every emergency frequency." They all received the same transmission. The message had been simple. "The Human Confederation requests a meeting with Council leadership to discuss terms for ending the current crisis. We will arrive at the Council capital in 7 days. We come in peace." Now, as their fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Council's home system, Sarah wondered how the meeting would go. The Council's response came immediately. Defense satellites targeted the Confederation fleet. Military ships moved to intercept. Warning messages demanded their immediate withdrawal. "This is Admiral Torres of the Human Confederation." Marcus broadcast on all frequencies. "We are here, under flag of truce, to deliver a message from the free worlds of the galaxy. We will not withdraw, but we will not fire, unless fired upon." For a tense hour, the two fleets faced each other across space. Then, unexpectedly, the Council ships began powering down their weapons. A transmission came from the surface. "Confederation vessels, you may proceed to the capital. High Chancellor Vex Thara will see your representatives." Sarah and a small diplomatic team took a shuttle to the planet's surface. As they flew over the once proud capital city, she was shocked by what she saw. Buildings were dark and empty. Streets that had once bustled with alien life were nearly deserted. The great council chambers, which had hosted delegates from hundreds of worlds, looked abandoned. Inside the chamber, only a handful of council members remained. High Chancellor Vex Thara sat on his throne, but his silver scales had dulled to gray. His golden eyes, once bright with confidence, now burned with desperate fury. "So," he said as Sarah entered, "the prodigal daughter returns." "Chancellor," Sarah said formally, "I come as a representative of the free worlds. We have an offer for the council. An offer? Vexthara laughed bitterly. What could you possibly offer us? You've already stolen half our territory, and most of our population. We haven't stolen anything, Sarah replied calmly. We've provided an alternative. Species chose to leave council space voluntarily. Because you filled their heads with lies about freedom and cooperation, snarled the Chancellor. Sarah looked around the empty chamber. Where once hundreds of aliens had debated the galaxy's future, now only a dozen remained. These were the loyalists, the ones who still believed in council authority. But even they looked tired and defeated. The lies seemed to be working, Sarah observed. Our worlds are prosperous and peaceful. Yours are starving and afraid. Unit Prime, one of the few remaining Nexus minds, spoke in its mechanical voice. State your offer, human. Sarah straightened. The Confederation offers full amnesty to all Council worlds that wish to join our alliance. We will provide food, medicine, and technical assistance to ease the transition. Former Council officials will be allowed to participate in the new government based on merit, not rank. And what about us? Demanded the Chancellor. What about the Council leadership? You will stand trial, Sarah said simply. The chamber erupted. The remaining council members shouted in anger and fear. Guards moved toward Sarah, but she held up her hand. The trial will be fair, she continued over the noise. You will be judged by representatives of all the species you ruled. If you are found guilty of crimes against sentient beings, you will face appropriate punishment. If you are found innocent, you will be free to live peacefully in Confederation space. We refuse, Vexthara roared. The Council bows to no one. Vaz. Vax. Vax. Then you will fall alone, Sarah said sadly. This offer expires in 24 hours. After that, we will begin accepting individual worlds that want to join the Confederation. The Council can either transform itself peacefully or watch itself collapse piece by piece. She turned to leave, but the Chancellor's voice stopped her. You cannot defeat us, human. We still have weapons you cannot imagine. Technology beyond your understanding. Sarah turned back to face him. Do you, Chancellor? Do you really? She gestured to Unit Prime. Ask your computer friends how many of their systems are currently functioning. Ask them how many of your superweapons are operational. Unit Prime's lights flickered as it accessed the Council's computer networks. After a moment, it spoke in a voice filled with electronic confusion. Warning. Critical system failures detected. Weapons platforms offline. Defense networks non-responsive. Main computer cores showing cascade errors. The color drained from the Chancellor's face. That's impossible. Those systems are hardened against attack. They're not under attack, Sarah said quietly. They're just broken. You see, Chancellor, humans built most of your advanced technology. We maintained it, upgraded it, and repaired it for 3 centuries. When we left, we took our knowledge with us. She walked to the center of the chamber, her voice carrying clearly to every corner. Your planet killer weapon that you're so proud of? It hasn't worked since the day after we left. Your defense satellites? They're running on automated systems that will fail within the month. Your faster-than-light communication network? It's already started breaking down. The Chancellor stared at her in horror as the truth sank in. You sabotaged us. No, Sarah said. We just stopped fixing your mistakes. For 300 years, humans quietly repaired the damage caused by your arrogance and incompetence. We made your flawed systems work. We solved problems you didn't even know existed. We kept your civilization running. Wall. She looked around the chamber at the handful of aliens still loyal to the Council. Without us, you're exactly what you always were. Bullies with broken toys. The silence that followed was broken by a new voice. One of the guards, and young Altarian, spoke up. I want to join the Confederation. More voices joined in. Other guards, technical staff, even some of the council members themselves began asking about defection procedures. High Chancellor Vex Thera sat on his throne, watching his last supporters abandon him. Finally, only he and Unit Prime remained loyal to the old order. "You haven't won," he whispered. "This isn't over." Sarah looked at him with something like pity. "Yes, Chancellor. It is over. It's been over since the moment you betrayed humanity. We just took 2 years to make it official." 4. She turned and walked toward the exit, her diplomatic mission complete. Behind her, she heard the Chancellor's screaming orders to guards who were no longer listening. As her shuttle lifted off from the capital, Sarah activated the communication system. Her voice would be broadcast to every world in the galaxy, on every frequency, in every language. "This is Ambassador Sarah Chen, of the Human Confederation. I speak for humanity and all the free peoples of the galaxy. The Galactic Council has fallen. The age of tyranny is over. Any world, any species, any individual who wishes to join our alliance is welcome. We offer cooperation instead of domination. We offer partnership instead of servitude. We offer hope instead of fear." She paused, looking out at the stars that held so much promise for the future. "The galaxy is free to choose its own path now. Humanity will be here, if you need us. We forgive, but we will never forget." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of possibility, full of hope, full of the promise that civilizations could choose cooperation over conflict. Humanity had walked away in silence when betrayed. Now they had returned with open hands, offering a better way forward. The galaxy would never be the same.